start recording. And so just to be safe, like let me also record here. Yes, is it recording? Yeah, it's recording, I guess. So okay, we'll talk about like generative models today. So last time we talked about BERT and also transformers, like all this like kind of cool stuff for language processing. And so we will talk about generative models. Most likely we will spend most of the time on GANs. And so let's just get started. So to begin with, maybe like just have a quick review of what we have so far. Like we talk a lot about supervised learning. Actually, if you think of like most of the problem we consider is kind of supervised, and so we consider this classification problem, like for example object detection problem, and also segmentation problem. All of this we have the labels is given to us, and also like even this image captioning as well. So at the beginning of this course, we also mentioned unsupervised learning. This is supposed to be an area that has lots of interest because bottom line, labels is very expensive. Like when we do supervised learning, we need to generate labels. We need to like manually kind of create all these labels, and it's very human intensive. So and in terms of like unsupervised learning, like we expect that we don't need label, and in the area in the realm of like unsupervised learning, what people will think of like problems like clustering, and for example, and also like dimensional reduction, like for example PCA. I think we kind of briefly mentioned PCA at some point, I forgot. And also like for example, like we will talk about more later on, like autoencoder that essentially when you have an autoencoder, like it's like you plug in the input like and output the same put in the same one. Okay, you're building a neural network here. So but you are kind of trying to, of course, like here you fit in your data in the input, and you try to like going through this telescope like network and hope that the decoder and also like spit out something close to the input. So if this network is well trained, then it means that the layer in the middle can capture all the information, right, of that data. So in a sense, this is also some kind of dimension reduction, and you can think of this as a way to generate features as well. And also like for unsupervised learning, you will think of like density estimation. If you know, of course, like all your data will be follow some kind of distribution, right? So if we are able to capture the distribution, theoretically we are able to generate that data like any I mean we generate this data like as many as you want, and this is just a summary. So I heard some background things there. So if you guys have questions, I just pause me for anything. I guess sometimes I have to check the chat somehow. So for the generative model, this is like an illustration like what it can be. Is like you have some training data here, like this is the data, you from that training data you have a distribution, the probability distribution of those training data, and you supposing that you're trying to generate data. So this is a plane, right? I'm trying to generate same data here, and you're trying to make this model distribution like close to your data distribution somehow. One can either do it explicitly, that in the sense like for example, autoencoder, you can see like it's more explicit approach. You're trying to um, train to create that distribution, and you can do it like more implicitly. For example, like as in GANs there, and so you may wonder why we're interested in generative models. Like this is like kind of a, a you can also think of generative models like in the realm of like unsupervised learning, though in the sense that you um, for most of these generative models you don't need to have label data to train them, and when you create this generative, okay, actually I didn't even mention that what I mean by generative model. I guess I should say like generative model versus discriminative model. uh, so discriminative will be like you're trying to classify something, like um, you for example, a classic example for discriminative model will be just classifier. So for example like SVM and so on. So you put in some data, classify whether it's a cat or not cat, but that model itself won't help you to generate a cat, let's say. And the generative model is like on the other hand is like supposing you can create new data, so similar to the data that you hope you will see. So and this is some example here. I'm sure that you guys see all this before, because GANs is not like several years ago. GANs is getting lots of popularity. I guess you guys probably have come across some of those, and this is like this is kind of amazing. This is like I think this is like some virtual face generator. I guess like one of you guys' presentation mentioned that also. Okay, I forgot it's from you guys' presentation or like from my other course like computer vision, but anyway. So or like this is like another example like generate a bathroom, I guess, or like bedroom, and this is like a work that trying to generate, just do some sketch, then you generate the actual image there. So just from that aspect, like you see like that can be application like for example like for artwork. Actually in terms of this generation, typically you can do some kind of super resolution as well, or like colorization. That's very useful now. In the sense you have for the movie industry, you can go back to look at all these black and white movies, and then just recolor all of them, and then you can people will be many people will be happy to look at the color version rather than the black and white version, and similar as the super resolution as well. Like you have an image, and you try to base on this image to regenerate an image have like higher resolution than the original, and all of this, of course, like companies like Adobe will be very interested in. So for example, this kind of like technique that you just sketch something and it will create the entire image. You can expect this Photoshop like I don't want so like 100 or something, like eventually they should have like some of these kind of features in their software. Um, and also like you can create generative model like for simulation, like in the sense I'm not sure this is really a valid application, but you think of like for example in reinforcement learning, for example we will talk a bit more like in the last week, I guess, like for reinforcement learning. For example, if I try to build a model to do autonomous driving, self-driving car, then I can create lots of training data to have the model to learn to drive the car, but there's a cost for that. Not just I gather the data, but I don't want to have data that like um, allow the. I mean, I will need some scene of like some failure, right? But I don't want to have actual failure in terms of the actual create this actual training data. For example, I don't want to really make a crash to create this crash data and then fit in the model. So instead, if I can do some kind of generative model to create this kind of data, that would be great. And another examples like I already mentioned, for example, in the autoencoder case, you can use generative model actually sometimes to create features. So actually you will see later on, like for example, GANs, like you can think of the some of these feature vectors like that kind of created alongside. You can think of that as some kind of like feature similar to what we saw last time when we studied NLP. So it can have some semantic meaning. You can play with that. Like for example, you can have like photo that with glasses. Then you can say this man with glasses and subtract women and what was I saying? And then like oh wait, man with glasses subtract man and add back woman, and then you will get like woman with glasses, stuff like that. So okay, anyway, so we'll get into some of this detail here. First, we'll start with something really simple. PGAN stuff is something like pixel RNN, pixel CNN. Basically, the idea is like explicitly trying to model the density probability distribution. So, and in this case, like we'll model in the sense that like if I have the entire image here, I'll model one pixel at a time. But I can think of like the current pixel. For example, like I'm trying to model the entire image and regenerate the entire image, like kind of a zigzag manner. So just like that, continue to generate that, and then I think of like when I generate this pixel, this will depend on like what I have already been generated so far. So then like this will be like the current pixel here, and then this will be conditionally independent. Okay, sorry. It will be like depends on the previously generated data, like x1 up to xi minus 1. And then I for the whole image, the whole distribution will be just the product of this conditional probability, right? So if I go from like this x, for example, I have px1 first, I generate the first pixel, then the second pixel probability is just p2 given x1, then I the third pixel px3 given p3 and p2, and so on and so forth. And the total, I mean the net probability of the generated image will be just the product of this all these conditional probabilities. And we can model these conditional probabilities either using a CNN or RNN, right? For example, like I can using an RNN, I can for example, like with this like pixel RNN, I can generate like this. I can from one pixel and then like digress to like for each of these pixels, for example, go to like that. So this pixel will depends on like this one and this one. So in the sense like we can have build network for this guy whenever this one generated, I can have like this one will depends on this will be another. Okay, sorry. Let's see. This one will be basically you can think of this as a RNN unit, and that will depends on the state like from the that sent to me from the left and the state sent to me from above, right? Then from that one I will decide what is my current state, and then from that current state I will decide what's my probability for this guy, and then I can just sample from this probability and create one more pixel here. Then I will just continue to do that, like, yeah, for the next layer and so on. So this is a pixel RNN model, and similarly I can do a CNN model as well. So like this one, I have each of these pixels in the middle will be like trying to the probability is generated from looking at a region here, and of course I cannot look in the future, so somehow I just have to mess out this part here, but that can be quite easily done. And then like for example, I can like when I don't see anything here, I can set this values to be 0 at the beginning. So then when I compute the CNN that for this filter here, anyway, this value I will be ignored. So, and then I can have multiple CNN layers and so on. Then eventually I also I can get the final layer will be so for example this one will be have multiple CNN layers, let's say, and then eventually can have one fully connected layer into let's say 255 values here in the last layer, and then again I do a soft max to decide which one has the highest probability. Of course I don't need to decide which one is high probability. Then I have a soft max and then I have distribution for that. Then I sample on this distribution and we'll get a pixel for that. Then I can continue to move on and stuff like that. And of course, in terms of training, for example, like training pixel RNN would be kind of similar, but maybe it's easier to explain using pixel CNN. This one is just basically it's just a feed-forward laterals, right? So you can just say each time I expect what is the I give you an image, then I can go 1 pixel at a time and continue to scan through that, and then I know what samples I'm expecting, right? So I can just use the cross entropy loss, something like that, and just as usual backpropagate back the gradient and try to train the corresponding filters here in each of the layers. So okay, I know it's kind of hand waving, but do you have any questions for that? I think it's it's quite similar to what we are doing so far, so I'm going pretty fast here. Yeah. Yes.
So this is for an image data. What about for numeric data? How do you
yeah, sorry, I guess for some reason maybe it's connection that your please speak slowly and something like that. There's lots of noise at the background. Yeah.
Okay, I was saying that
yes.
That this is for an image data.
Yes.
So how would you scale this for a numeric data, especially data that has discrete and continuous values?
Okay. Actually, if you have continuous value, then okay, that's two questions here, right? So if you change to another kind of data, for example, think of 1D data, it can be even easier. So 1D data then will be, for example, stock market data, let's say. Then the problem, if let's say I use this, still using this CNN things, it's still the same. If I continue to predict the next one, so I can just look at have CNN filter basically look at this one. So I have filter for that one. So how should I draw it? Let's see. Maybe I make it more precise. So let's say I can have filter like A, B, C, D, E, right? Something like that. But of course I cannot look into the future. So this part is actually redundant here. So this is a filter with 5 coefficients here. Then this is one layer, and I can do another layer, right? Maybe another layer for that, and another layer for that. So, but afterward, after several layers, then I can have a fully connected layer to just have how many values I have. Here is the first question. If I assume it's discrete, also just 256 or different values, then I can have a vector of 256. Then I have each of these will be the score of all these possibility values, which one is more likely, and then I do a soft max to become a distribution for that. So you can see it doesn't affect whether what kind of dimension you're working on. So you can even work on video. Then if you work on video, then you will have a filter. It's essentially video. Right? So actually, when you have 1D data, it's even simpler. It's just a 1D filter there. now in terms of the second question, like if you want something is continuous, then basically you just change your loss function from cost entropy loss to like mean square loss, right? So you know what you have here. So instead of like you have this cost entropy loss, so you have some expected value you want. For example, you want this what you want to see here maybe is like 18.56 something something, and now based off this model you get like 16 something like that, right? Then you have the losses essentially like this, right? So again, you can back propagate this loss back and try to adjust the weight at this or each of these layers here. So did I kind of answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So okay. So any other questions or comment? So if not, let's move on to, let's see, this is pixel C. So this is just some example that the generated result. So of course it's kind of old, like, oh sorry, I didn't have the permission. I'm copying from this CNS, but I guess it's okay. I don't actually use this for profit. So here, you see, yeah, actually it's hard to see much, but you can see this is kind of small, and you can generate data like that. There's actually quite a lot of following work for that one, but I didn't really keep track of this area much, so I don't know. If you guys are interested in particular, you can think of like consider this kind of like as project as well. Just dig deeper into some of these techniques. And let's see. Some of these disadvantages, like because you're generating pixel by pixels, it can be pretty slow, especially you are in a high dimensional data. So and 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 actually I think like I listened to the conversation or interview of A Good Fellow by Les Freeman. I highly recommend Les Freeman's. He has a channel, like YouTube channel, or like a podcast for like interviewing like lots of great people, like both in the area of AI and outside the area of AI. And of course, Goodfellow is the inventor of like GANs, and he is very fluent guy, and also apparently he's extremely intelligent, and he's very humble also, like in terms of his contribution about GANs, and he's saying like he's actually not exactly sure the GANs is doing so well, like in terms of like image generation, for example, like comparing to, for example, Pixel CNN and Pixel NN. He's thinking that also one possibility is like just the people like in graphics was very much interested in that in GANs rather than this other area. So he's not sure. He's not exactly sure the I mean the gain of GANs compared to like for example like the state of the art Pixel CNN, techniques in Pixel CNN and so on, is really gained from GANs alone, or like gaining from the expertise or the domain knowledge of those guys, like kind of combining GANs with like image generation. I mean those guys are experts in graphics, so therefore they know lots of tricks. So anyway, let's talk about GANs. So GANs stand for Generative Adversarial Networks, and as I said, like it's kind of invented by Goodfellow back in 2013 and 2014, around that time, and he was still a student, I believe, like with the group with Banjo in Montreal, and of course, I'm sure that you guys heard of lots of good things from GANs already. One of these very kind of like highly regarded praises from like uh, Yang LeCun. He's saying that like he thinks this is the best idea like, for the last 20 years, something like that. So, but the idea itself is not complicated to understand. The idea is very simple. So, basically, we are trying to kind of train two models here. In particular, here we'll be training two laterals here, neural laterals model. One model is trying to do this job known as discriminator. Basically, you're trying to see like for some data coming in, for example, like I'm interested in images. I want to see whether this image that coming in is a fake image or a genuine image. So that's basically it. We want to train this discriminator to be really perceptive, like to be able to recognize whether something is fake or genuine. And then we want to also train a generator, so it's going to generate some images or like data that's very much similar or like very much like indistinguishable, hopefully, to the genuine data there. And the idea is that we are going to train this model at the same time. Then hopefully, we were able to. Of course, like this is if you think of this problem is really a kind of game theoretical problem. Like if you heard of game theory, like the slash equilibrium and so on. And one lash. So eventually, like because it's a game theoretical problem, actually you can show that there's a lash equilibrium exists, and the best lash equilibrium that we'll be interested in will be something like the generator can generate something really indistinguishable from this genuine data. And because it's indistinguishable from this genuine data, so the best discriminator did is like just random guessing. So what is coming in would be like kind of like 50-50 that whether he can guess it correctly is like genuine or not. And this is like getting to more precise for the math here. So I will have this sample x is drawing from a distribution is qx. Qx is the genuine distribution here, and then like I have z here is just a random variable. So typically z is just drawing from a Gaussian, let's say, a normal distribution, and then like a g is a kind of like a network that will use z as an input, like that is a z sample from that normal distribution, and then like we get this like x is like the generated data is a px given z. So this is essentially the model for the generator, right? So actually this is the model here. So therefore x is like kind of have except this conditional distribution, and then d is just a discriminator. So if let's see. Well, what's this here? I'm thinking like, yes, no, x is equal. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, this determine whether x is like is from qx or not. So and yeah. So let's see. Let's get into more detail in the math. So I have p data, as I said, it's just qx here, and p model x, so the probability of drawing x here will depends on the original noise here that I'm feeding in. As I mentioned, this can be just a Gaussian noise, typically just a zero mean like Gaussian noise, and then like with this conditional distribution. Actually, this one typically is really a deterministic thing, right? Because but anyway, let's write it this way. So and so actually this is just px, right? If you what I want to say is like this one, when I multiply them together, it's just pxc, right? And then when I marginalize, this z variable, therefore get back px. So therefore it's px here, the model of distribution. So now let's think of these loss functions for this discriminator and generators. For the discriminators, what it wants is that I want to make sure that like when the data, when the input is sampled from the actual data, that's the genuine data, I hope that like I'm going to classify as a genuine data. So therefore, actually this one is just the cross entropy loss here, right, for this guy here. So if I have yes. So if this is genuine, so dx is just equal to 1, right? So therefore this should be small. If I don't do it correctly, if dx, yes, I want to emphasize again, like dx, this discriminator should output like 1 or 0. 1 if it thinks that like x is not fake or like genuine, and I don't know why and 0 otherwise, basically if like it output like 0 and it thinks it's fake. So then like when for the discriminator, when it's sampled from the model or like sampled from the generator, then I want this to be detect as 0, so therefore I will just try to have the cost is log 1 minus dx, something like that. So in this is the discriminator cost. So the discriminator want to minimize this as much as possible, right? So you can think of the generator is just the opposite, right? The generator want to you can think of this as a Minimax problem here. So you have this generator cost is essentially just equal to the opposite of the discriminator cost. So you have the generator, so therefore the generator cost would be just equal this like this expectation plus this expectation here, right? But for in terms of the generator, wait a sec, actually, yeah, I think I have a sign error here, so I think I have plus here. So but in terms of the generator, it has no control of this guy, right? This is the distribution of the genuine data. I don't have any control for that. I only have control for this guy because I can control this g function here, or this letter here. So therefore, like for the generator, actually it only interests in the second terms here. You can just write the cost function as this one. So and as I mentioned, like this, because it's actually like, if you think of that, another way of writing it, I can write like I have a JD. This is the discriminator cost function, and I actually have the discriminator try to minimize this cost, right? And the generator is actually trying to maximize this cost here. So therefore this is a min-max problem. It's like a game theoretic problem that like it should have a Lash equilibrium, and as I said, the Lash equilibrium we hope that we can get to is like the generator generates something like indifferentiable from the true data. So in that case, that would be super nice. So I'm thinking like whether I should use a So by the way, are you guys following me? I know that like usually when people flip through like equations, like it's very hard to follow. Let me let me maybe I use a whiteboard instead. Then like maybe it's a let's see how do I yeah. So okay, let's look at this more carefully. So I have JD here. The discriminator loss function is equal to, as I said, like I have the data, is sample from P data here, and log dx, and then also like I want that when x is sampled from the model that's created by the generator, sorry, I draw data two times, write data two times model, then I want that I will be able to classify this as I would want to say like this is fake, so I want to have like ds equal to 0. So therefore like I should have like log 1 and therefore equal to 0, stuff like that. So now let's see like what should we design the discriminator here. So what should be dx? Turns out dx, like having this form, like we can compute this precisely. Simply like you think of like say if I have some d star x, let's say this is the optimum now, d star x is the optimum, and if this is the optimum, let's say if I vary it a little bit, like anything, like maybe I just vary it a little bit by delta x, where delta x is any function, and lambda is kind of small. So what we expect that if I do that, I should have the JD with this new D star with this okay, I should have this JD D star should be less than this JD D star plus this thing, right? If this is like the optimum, and actually it's like in calculus, you can think of like if I take the partial derivative of this thing here with respect to lambda, at lambda is equal to when lambda is equal to 0, should give me something like this derivative should be equal to 0. For lambda equal to 0, because when lambda equal to 0 is actually just at this d star point, right? So I expect like half the slope here is equal to 0. So do you agree with me like for that? So then like okay, this actually this curve at least like I forgot like whether we came across that this is like just this calculus of variation actually. So let's do that. Like I have this JD here. Let's see if I plug in this guy and try to dictate the derivative. So then I will have like this is minus e x p data log d star. Maybe I'll just skip the x there. P star plus lambda delta and minus e x p model log 1 minus d star plus lambda delta. Right, and now I take the derivative of this whole thing with respect to lambda here. So if I take with respect to lambda, then the first term I will have minus expectation xp data. This is take derivative of this guy 1 over this thing, right? 1 over d star plus lambda delta. And then I take lambda derivative inside this thing here, then I have like delta here, right? And then I minus take an expectation of like p model here 1 over again 1 minus d star plus lambda delta. The derivative of this guy I have lambda again, but I have a minus sign here, so don't forget about that. This minus sign can go up here, become here. Oh, also not lambda, sorry, I have delta, like antiderivative with respect to lambda, so it's a delta like that. So and this thing, like when delta equal to sorry, not delta, lambda equal to 0, we want to set this to 0. So let's see. So then like this one, I say lambda is like small, right? So actually in the denominator, I can actually ignore this lambda here. If I set it to 0, it's just gone. So this is like is equal to my expectation. Let me write it as an integral here. Integral p data x and d star x delta x dx. So I have still let me keep the minus sign here, and then plus p model x 1 minus d star x delta x dx. Right, this one is equal to 0. I hope this one is equal to 0. Then I think I can regroup the term. I regroup the term here. I will have like something like that. P data x over d star x minus p model x 1 minus d star x times delta x dx is equal to 0. Now the argument here is that like delta x is kind of arbitrary, right? This is like, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is any function. So for any function, I take the integral of this thing here is equal to 0. The only possibility is that this guy is equal to 0, right? So therefore, like if this guy equal to 0, immediately you see that p star x, I can solve this. If I solve this out, it will be something like p data x over p data x plus p model x, something like that. So actually it's very simple, right? So okay, there's a long I skipped that. I think I should I answer it now? Let's see. Maybe okay, I see you guys have one question that maybe I try to answer that anyway now for quickly. So for pixel RNN and pixel CNN, the difference is just the different models, right? So the thing is, if you are using RNN, then you're using RNN. And CNN, you're basically using CNN. If we go back to, let me, if I can share slides here again. If I got one question, but about like difference of, so just if you have pixel RNN here, you're here you are basically have an RNN model or something like. So then for RNN models, you are just like for, okay, let's see if I can erase some of this marking here. It's like two. So this will be a RN model, right? So in the sense that you actually have model that like for each of the pixel, you can think of like that. Each of the pixel will be taking something like I have an RN unit that I will take two input here and output like states that, yeah, something like this. So I have RNN cell here like this one. Wait a sec. Yeah, it's a little bit so what I'm drawing right now is, let's see. Let me draw like a couple here. Let me call this node A, B, C, A, B, C, D, E, S, A. So, and this is A, C, let's say this is E, this is B and D, right? So each of these unit will be like a LSTM or like RN unit, and we'll take this as input, right? This inputs from here and here, and then you hope to generate output like to here and here. The next day sending to this guy and this guy, and then you just train each of these units here. So you to do that, like basically given the input like this, you just give output that like this to, so that like it will, of course I this guy here for each of these node also should like have a have another output like saying, okay, what value is supposed to send, what's the distribution that's supposed. What I mean is like here I'm only showing the hidden state, the each of these arrow is just showing the hidden states passing along. But you remember for the RNN models, like when you have the hidden state, one mean like have a hidden state, like typically it's like draw like this actually, because like this is a 2D, so like it's a little bit complicated to draw. So in the classic RNN, you have one layer, then you have like some input like x like something like x1, x2, x3, and so on. Then you have some hidden state passing along, right? And at the same time, for each of these unit, will send out like its current output, like y1 and y2 and so on. And so therefore, what I mean is that here, like expect of this unit also send out an output here. That's the correspond to the distribution at each of this node here. And in terms of training, I'm trying to train all this, basically all this unit, right? So actually, I have this unit train in the sense that like this unit will be used like throughout the network. It's actually somehow that I think it's quite amazing to see that like even I have a same unit that is used out throughout the networks, throughout the image, it still can generate image with different kind of characteristics, different images. So this is the pixel IN, but pixel CNN will be similar, but it won't have any kind of it won't have memory, right? First, it's like for this RNN unit, it's actually remember like this hidden unit is like some kind of memory from the past, right? But for the CNN, there's won't be any memory. So basically, you will be just just here, like for example, I'm consider this node here. I'll just say at the neighborhood, like a big neighborhood, apply kind of like convolutional layer. So have a big convolution filter here. I may have like several layer convolution filters, and eventually get up to the point like to just have output for this particular node, and have that distribution for that one. But there's no memory here basically. So I'm not sure I answered your question satisfactory. Do you have let's see, where can I see chat again? So do you still have that question? Like did I kind of answer your question? So I guess I will move on since I didn't hear anything from you. So so if I come back to GANs, that's what we derived earlier on the whiteboard. So it's like I have this is the final discriminator given our model. So it's very intuitive. Basically, if I consider like a particular data point I should generate it, I should just say pick the data point like based on how likely the data, basically that kind of ratio of like how likely the data, that data points in the actual data compare with like the data point in the model. So that's yeah. Wait, did I say it correctly actually? I'm thinking, let's see. Discriminator. Yeah, yeah. So if I have my, yeah, I think it's yeah. Actually, I think I don't think I need to say more. Honestly, this is yeah. Everyone agree with that way. It looks like very intuitive. So if you have x here, so whether you think it's like likely this x is belong to the it's genuine or like it's actually from the model, you just look at the ratio, right? So for that data point, like what's the probability to be from the actual data to like the combined probability of actual data and the model. So and of course, like, if the ratio like is more probable is from the data than from the model, then I will think more highly that this is an actual data. Otherwise, I will think that is fake. So this is kind of the cause for the discriminator. Now look at the generator. So generator, we said that we have a cost function is just equal to the 1 minus the, sorry, not 1 minus, the negative value of the discriminator cost function. But of course we can skip this guy because it doesn't do anything. So therefore I have the generator cost is equal to this guy here. But actually there's some slight modification. Sometimes it's like if you think of like when you first training the data, typically when you start from the beginning thing, you typically already have discriminator this from other model that you can discriminate things rather well. But for the generator, it's very difficult to generate images that at the beginning is quite similar, very much similar to the actual data, right? So therefore, like we typically operating in at the beginning, we are operating in the region that the generator, this DGC, should be pretty pretty small, right? Because it's very easy for the generator to realize that what you generate from the for the discriminator to realize that from the generator that one you generated is not real, it's fake. So therefore, like DGC is kind of small, close to 0. So when DGC is close to 0, you're operating in the realm. Actually, actually it's easier to look at this one. You're operating in a realm like this one here. So, and this is the original kind of cost function for the generator. So if you're operating here, like the slope is kind of too small, so you will have like very slow training. So a suggestion by this work here, like for the non-saturating cost function, is like instead of using this cost here, we'll use a replacement cost to use this one instead. Basically, instead of using this one, we'll use this. So it's still like trying to for the generator, still trying to make the discriminator for think that like what is generated is true. So if the generator is really doing good job, like then I will have like DGC is equal to 1, but still this will be equal to 0. But you will basically will have a and this area and the region that like at the beginning that generator is not doing a very good job, you will have a steeper slope here, so therefore it can like train faster. So this is just a one trick. There are actually quite a few other refinements. I will go through some of them. So for example, like we have this so-called like one-sided label smoothing. So if you think of the discriminator cost, well, another way to write the discriminator cost is like this. You have the actual data. What you if you know this is genuine data, you want that like the distribution of DG and Z basically is you hope that you always get able to be discriminated, right? So you want that is like equal to 1 basically. Okay, I mean this notation here is a little bit kind of sloppy. So here 1 here, I'm meaning that like have a distribution that how do I write it actually? If I think of the data, so data is like I have a couple of data here, x1. This seems like it's making it more confusing. Let's see, x1. I have several data points here. Let's say this is like data point. Okay, this is actually data point x2, x3. So I have this data point here. Let's say this is genuine. I might have this is like fake. So, and what I want is like I want the DGX here. I have the D or like DX here, maybe as a distribution, just DX here as a distribution. So, if this, okay, this is maybe I just write this is fake. This is not fake. So if the discriminator is doing a good job, I should be able to train something like that. Right? I have something like this, I guess. Okay, so I should have like this is getting 1 here, and then this is equal to 0 here. So, and you can think of like what we are writing the cost function earlier is similar to a cost entropy loss of this guy and the actual dx here. I mean the actual dx here probably is not as nice here, like 1 here, but maybe I will have like this is like point 8, and then like this is like 0.9, maybe like 0.9, and then maybe 0.5, and then like maybe this is like 0.1 here, let's say. So you can think of like the original, what it's trying to do is like compute the cross entropy, or like you can think of like KL divergence even between this one and these two distributions here. And also like for the yeah, actually this I already combined these two already. Actually, when I write this, is I combine like these two, like this one and this one, these two together. So what is suggesting here is like instead of like making too certain, like when you are seeing something is real, like this is like something is not fake, is like from the training data, right? Training data. So rather than like I would say 100% sure that this is from the training data, I'll just like decrease this confidence a little bit, like to 0.9. So in practice would be like this distribution, instead of this is like 1 here, it become 0.9, something like that. And then I kind of like compare these two things here. And why I want to do that, because because like when you have this training data, oftentimes like for example, like, I guess a very good example is like my own signature. For example, if I have a model trying to generate my signature, and I have this generate data, like I'm creating my signature and then I fake data. The problem is like when I sign my signature, I you see my handwritings, you know that I do not manage to create a signature that is have 100, even myself can 100% sure that this is actually a true signature. So therefore, like when you therefore like it's not actually good to make your training data to say like for sure this is like 100% true, especially that can be as I said, like it's hard to make sure what you generated is like is supposedly like you want to be like true or genuine, or like also like it can be subjected to noise as well. So and by the way, like of course like you can do the other way around as well. Like you can make it less certain about your training data. Maybe someone will suggest, how about like for the sampling data, maybe I also make it less certain, instead of like saying that I will say for sure this is definitely fake. Maybe I say that's like actually 10.1 probability that is not fake. So it turns out it's not a good idea. It's you want to make it just one-sided. So therefore call it one-sided label smoothing. So because if you look at the expression here, you have dx is like this, right? So if I allow to give a beta, even a tiny small beta here, if it turns out like for that particular x is you have this p data x is pretty small, then you will kind of like unrealistically inflated this whole dx for this x here. So if like what I'm saying, like if x is not commonly seen, and somehow in your model you create some signature here some way that I never sign like this, but somehow like the model create this. So but if I use this not one-sided label smoothing, I have two-sided here, so this will be included in my x here. So I'm saying like I artificially inflated the score for this particular signature, even though like this is like kind of generated by computer. Yeah, I never sign like this, but I will I mean the discriminator will think that like this is just from this expression you can see that the discriminator may think that like this is actually a genuine signature. So okay, I actually what I'm doing with time. Let's see. I have kind of like 5 minutes, So maybe I just talk a little bit about this batch normalization at the end here. So we talk about batch normalization like before, like long time ago, like when we talk about in general the neural networks, and of course it's very useful and like in most of the time we should use it in the networks. But the problem like of batch normalization in GANs, as you can see here, this is like actually having two batches I generate the image. You can see that the flavor of the batch was embedded inside this generated images. So it depends on different batches you use. That batch actually have influence with your actual generated image. So one possibility is using this so-called reference batch norm. The idea is simply like I will fix one batch. So from now on, I will just only use this batch. So every time I will generate image, will all have this flavor, and I will stick with that. It's okay with me. I don't care. And then other possibilities like is a very simple idea. Is like so-called this virtual batch. Is that like each time you have your own batch, but also you keep a reference batch. Then you just combine the statistics, like compute the net mean and variance of these combined batches, and use that for batch normalization. Okay, only 3 minutes left. I guess maybe let's see. Yeah, I guess maybe I will just stop here, and then like you guys have any questions? Like let me check with chat maybe. Oh, my mouse is not working. Where's my mouse? Okay. So yeah, I guess like it's better to leave it to next time. So I guess I will stop here. If you guys don't have any questions, I will meet with you guys next week then. Okay. So I'm stopping the meeting now.